Today's Saturday coffee chat is going to be a little bit different than our normal chats. Instead of catching you up with what's happened over the past week, we're going to catch you up with what has happened to Lori's health over the past couple weeks and what the diagnosis was. So sit back and watch. Two weeks ago today is when it all started. Lori was in bed. She didn't get up, and I didn't think we were going to do the chat that morning. She wasn't feeling well, and as the day went on, she progressively got worse and was having very, very, very severe lower stomach pains. And it finally got to the point to where she actually uttered the word hospital. And if you know us and know this one, she doesn't like doctors, she doesn't like hospitals, she doesn't like going to the doctor even for the annual. But
I was hurting so much. I felt I didn't have a choice. There was nothing we could do. We tried a couple things and it didn't work. And so it was like, okay, it's time to go to the hospital.
And I couldn't believe that she actually uttered those words, and it actually scared the crap out of me when she said it, because I knew she was serious. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what did you say?
And he was like, what do I do?
What do I do? She wants to go to the hospital. What do I do? I knew it was bad. I knew she was in pain, and it hurt me during the day to watch her hurting. I mean, it was painful. You were in a lot of pain.
Yeah, you wanted to call an ambulance. It was like, no, you don't need to do that. Just drive me in. So I laid down in the back seat.
Yeah.
And he drove me in. I told them, and I had so much pressure I couldn't actually sit. So I told him to tell them I need a stretcher. Well, they don't bring stretchers out to the car.
No.
So they brought a wheelchair out, and I said, well, I can't really sit on it. So I was hunched over. Actually, I was leaning the other way. And just in pain. And when they did the little triage thing, they sent me right to a room instead of making me go back out to the waiting room to wait. And then the ball started rolling with a bazillion strong pain meds. Well, you can tell it better than me because I was not really with it that night.
You were out of it. She was out of it quite a bit. But we were in the emergency room lobby less than 4 or 5 minutes. I mean, it was quick. I was impressed that they got us. Bear, take it easy. That they got us into a room in the emergency area that quickly, but they could see that the pain that she was in. So they started pumping pain meds into her immediately. Asked where the pain was on her belly, and it was basically below the belly button. And they started, can we say what kind of pain meds?
Yeah.
Morphine.
Morphine. They did one shot and it did nothing.
It did nothing, and I mean in just a couple minutes after that first shot, they gave her a second shot, a heavy dose of morphine, and it did nothing. And
so they went stronger. I don't even remember what it was.
I can't remember what it was called, but they said, they talked to Lori, and they said, we need you to listen to us, to try to hear us through this pain. We need you to close your eyes and think of something nice, because the drug they were going to give her was going to take her out in La La Land. And, think of something nice, close your eyes, try.
I think I just slept. I don't think I ever...
No, I think you did. You tried to sleep, but you were moaning and your eyes were open. You were conscious through a lot of it. But they gave her this drug, and it kind of worked, but not really. The pain just didn't subside whatsoever. And we were in the emergency room for probably 6.5 or 7 hours. And we got there at like around 5 o'clock on Saturday. And then by midnight, they had decided we need to check her into the hospital. They had run some tests, and they had a few different people come in and
do a CAT scan that night.
I think yes, they did. They did a CAT scan that night. They did a hurry up CAT scan, and it just got to the point to where they said she needs to be admitted to the hospital. So they admitted her at midnight.
That night they even said diverticulitis.
Yeah,
With
diverticulitis.
abscess.
And yeah, with an abscess is what they diagnosed her as. And over the next couple days, it progressively got worse. It didn't get better.
Well, the abscess was too small to put a drain in
Yeah.
at that point, and so they thought, okay, we'll knock it down with antibiotics.
Because they did 2 more CAT scans, CT scans, after the emergency room, like the next day and the next couple days. And they said, yes, you have an abscess. You have, well, I don't know what they're called. These little bubbles on the lower colon, digestive tract, lower colon, but it's called diverticulitis. But hers was an acute case of diverticulitis, which made it even worse because of the extra little bubbles up there and the perforated. It was an abscess, but it was perforated. This little pocket, and it was too small to put a drain tube in, so they were going to treat it with antibiotics. So they did that for 2 days and continued with the CAT scans, the CT scans each day to see if it had gotten bigger or smaller. The antibiotics weren't working. It actually grew twice in size from what it was on Saturday night.
Just within a couple days.
Just within a couple days. It was twice as big. So they decided at that point it's big enough now we can put a tube in it, a drain tube. So they inserted it, and they knocked you out the first time, right? If I remember correctly.
Put the drain in, yes.
To put the drain in. They had to knock her out for that, so that was a major deal. They put the drain in with a bulb at the end of the drain, and it had to drain between 10 and 30 milligrams of stuff each day, every 12 hours, to know if it was working properly. And it was working. It did work. It was draining right at 20 the first couple times, which is right in the middle of that.
The pain basically went away as soon as they started draining.
Yeah.
The only pain that I had was a pain in my ass where the damn tube comes out of. Well, you can't see it. Right about here. It's upper, not like in the ass.
She's getting better. Slowly. She's getting better.
I'm happy to be home.
Yes.
So as soon as that happened, I started feeling a lot better. After a couple days after having the drain, I stopped the pain meds completely. I didn't need them. I wasn't hurting.
Because she was still on a lot of pain meds Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, even Tuesday. You were still on the pain meds. Quite a few. By 2, because I think it was Monday afternoon they put the tube in. I can't remember. The days all were just kind of washed together.
Friday, so then it was like I kept on the meds for a few days, and then it was like 3 or 4 days before I left that I even stopped the Tylenol that they were giving me.
Those were pills.
Yeah.
The other pain meds were given in an IV. And speaking of IVs.
Oh God. You probably can't see it on here. My arms.
Lift your arm up a little bit. There you go.
Yeah, you probably can't see it.
Probably can't.
Totally bruised. This one is the worst. And these look good now.
Oh gosh.
But it bruised here, all the way through here, up in here. It was bruised across here. Bruises across here, on top of here. I still have sticky stuff from the tape. I keep trying to get it off.
It was horrible in the beginning. It was so bad that I told her, I said, well, once we get out of here, you're not leaving the house until those clear up. Or if you do, I'm not going with you.
You wear long sleeves.
You wear long sleeves.
I don't care if it's 100 degrees outside, you're wearing...
It was bad. They had so many IVs in different places.
When they did this last one, they had to do an ultrasound to find a good vein. And I generally have really good veins, but they just weren't getting them. They were rolling, they were exploding, it was awful.
And plus with the blood draws.
Oh yeah, blood draws too. So not only trying to get an IV in me, then they're like, okay, so where can we draw your blood from? Because...
In the beginning, they were doing 3 blood draws per day. And then it went down to 2, like once every 12 hours. But it was 3 in the very beginning. Yeah. It was quite...
It was awful. And then the worst thing...
Quite the adventure.
The worst thing was they wanted to do it's not really a CAT scan. It's a kind of an X-ray, but they shoot the dye into you to see where things are going. They shoot it into the tube to see where the drain is, if it's communicating with any other. I don't know.
The needle that is inside of her, and the needle goes into that pocket, that perforated pocket, which is the abscess. They needed to make sure that needle was still in there and hadn't become dislodged.
Yeah, in the right place.
And that it wasn't poked all the way through and coming out the other side, because it wasn't draining toward the end of her hospital stay like it was supposed to. So they took her downstairs, and that was a nightmare. That was not fun.
They made it sound like it was going to be so easy and not a problem. And maybe sometimes it is, but to me it was like a torture chamber of horrors. And I have bad enough problems going to the doctor, and this was horrible. They were so uncaring. There was one lady, 2 techs, and the doctor, and they were all just like as if I was just a whatchamacallit in a widget factory. It was like they didn't care at all. And it was horrifying for me. And they made it sound like it was going to be so easy. And then it was like they didn't care. I came back from it just laying down on the bed in the fetal position crying, and he was scared to death of what had happened. And I couldn't talk about it. It was just awful. Whatever progress I made with being with doctors in the beginning of the stay, because everybody had been so wonderful, it set me back even further about going to the doctor. And I'm just so lucky that the nurse that I had was amazing. And the hospitalist that I was lucky enough to have, I think, like 5 days, Sabrina. Dr. Sabrina, if you're watching, I love you, and I wish that you were there when I came back. It was awful. And as soon as I start feeling a little bit better, I'm writing a very long letter about some of the inhumane things that I saw there. Not just in that room, but a couple other things. People don't have their dignity in a hospital. You just don't. There's only a handful of nurses and CNAs that care. The rest of them, they're just there to do a job. They don't really care. They don't care how you would feel. I wish they would think about how they would feel if that person was their mom or their daughter or their dad or their brother or their child, and think about how they would want them cared for. I hated it, and it's still not over yet. I still have the drain that Tom has to deal with twice a day.
Yeah, I have to flush the drain, empty the bulb that's on her, and measure it, and we have to keep track of that. And supposedly in 2 weeks from when she was dismissed, she gets to hopefully have the drain come out, but we have to go back in for at least one more CT scan to make sure that the abscess has gone down with the antibiotics that we're taking here at home.
And that it's gotten small enough that the rest of it will be wiped out with the antibiotics.
The antibiotics would take care of the rest of it. So, but and that kind of brings us up to date here. She was released from the hospital a couple days ago. She's been doing a lot of resting, a lot of sleeping, trying to catch up, because if you've ever been in a hospital, it's not a place to go for a vacation. You don't get a lot of rest. They're constantly waking you up. They're constantly noise in the hallway. They don't close the doors a lot of times. And it's just a nightmare.
The first room that I was in was horrible.
It was a small room. It was made for one person. They crammed 2 in there, and it just wasn't...
Right next to the nurse's station.
Right next, so all the bells and whistles are going off at the nurse's station.
So not only can you hear it coming from all of the rooms, somebody's buzzer, alarm, da-da-da, whatever. There's like 20 different sounds. Not only can you hear them coming down the halls because everybody's doors are open, you can hear them in the nurse's station too. Excuse me. And so to sleep was forget it. And no curtains. They have one little curtain between the two beds that are like basically next to each other. I mean, like right next to each other. They don't have room to do anything, so when somebody has to have something done to them, you're getting banged around because there's no room for them to maneuver. So that was for a few days, and one of my nurses finally got a curtain up on my side. I was in the bed next to the door, and it was like, can you either please close the door, or can somebody try and get a curtain hooked up? Well, she worked her butt off and got a curtain there for me, which helped a lot. As far as privacy goes, and then we wanted one for the poor lady next to me because I had to go right in front of her bed to go into the bathroom. And so disturbing her all the time, the light from the bathroom is shining right in her face. And well, they couldn't do it. Maintenance comes up and says, no, we can't do this. There's no hooks up in their track. It was stupid. And then they would never close the door. I had to ask them, and then it was like a pain in the ass for them to just close the door behind them. Because I couldn't sleep. It was too noisy and too light and bright.
But we did end up getting you a bigger room.
So my nurse Taryn, if you're watching, I love you. Thank you so much. You and Vanessa and they got me into another room like 4 times the size of the one that I was in. There was one other person in there, but it was down at the very end of the hall, so it was nice and quiet, and it was so much better. And I started feeling so much better after they moved me in there.
Because she started getting some rest, which is what she needed, and it helped a lot. And then, of course, once we got into that room and we had Ada, she was incredible.
My nurse Ada, I don't know if
we love her to death.
If she'll be watching or not, but she's my angel Ada. Her and Taryn.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth was great, but I only got to have her once. And so, I mean, there were others too, and I wrote everybody's names down because there was no way I was going to remember, because you have 50 million people. Yeah. I was lucky enough to have Ida for her days, and Taryn for all her days, and Dr. Sabrina for all of her days. But there's too many people. Nobody knows what the other person is doing. That's like with all these stupid doctors. I miss the days when your doctor was your doctor and that was it. You know, your general practitioner came to the hospital and was in charge of your care, not 50 people that you don't know. And it's just gotten to be way too much of a big industry and not a health care. They don't care. And it's just too much a business. And they're there to make money. You're just, like you had said, you're in a widget factory. And the Chamber of Horrors was freezing cold. They've got me laying there half naked and they don't care. The 2 techs were bickering back and forth about which process they were going to do, because one guy was from some other place, and they're sitting there bickering in front of me. I'm freezing cold. This
isn't an operating room. They were arguing with each other while she's laying on the table.
Yeah.
Conscious.
Yeah. And then they couldn't find the stupid doctor. He had taken off. He knew I was there, came and said his hello, and this is what we're going to do, and then he took off, and then they couldn't find him. And I'm laying there freezing to death, and I finally said something, it's cold in here. And then they brought me blankets and covered me up, and it was like, it was just awful. It was horrible.
But we are on the road to recovery.
I'm home.
She's home. That's the biggest part right there, where you need to be. And
Tom's been wonderful. I don't know what I would have ever done without him. I want to thank everybody for reaching out and checking on me all the time, and thank you to Curtis and Mary and Sean and Angie for your flowers. They're so beautiful. And Sean and Angie, yours came first, and it was the perfect little flower arrangement. Can you get it? There's not much of it left, but this was perfect because there was nowhere to put flowers
You
in
know
the
what?
first room.
I've got a picture of it from the beginning.
Oh yeah, it had such beautiful flowers, but it's a coffee mug, and I was able to hold it when they were bumping my tray in my bed. There was, like I said, there was nowhere to put flowers, so this went on my tray, and I protected it with my life because they were constantly brushing up against it with the curtain and banging into the tray. I thought they were going to knock it down, so I was constantly grabbing it and holding it so they wouldn't ruin it. Hello. But it helped cheer me up when I was feeling my worst. And then Curtis and Mary, yours finally did come. Sorry that they lost it, but it's gorgeous. A big white orchid and some palms in it. But and then everybody else reaching out with your messages, and I don't even know everything. I just know that Tom had posted a couple things, and I haven't read all of everything. But thank you. It's great knowing I have such wonderful friends. And then I'm also really grateful that it happened here at home with my family. That helped a lot too.
Can't imagine if this would have happened when we were out on the road, especially traveling through the central part of Nevada where there's really no healthcare systems at all. I know, that's just things that we've thought about the last couple days. It's like we are so thankful, so grateful. If it had to happen, it happened when we were here in the Reno area and were able to hit to a healthcare facility.
I'm grateful to Wendy and Kevin for helping with Bear a lot.
They did.
Because Tom would come in the morning, and then he'd have to come back at noon-ish at home, take care of the animals. Then he'd go back in, and then he could stay longer because then Wendy and Kevin were here to help with Bear. And so it just can't wait for this to be over.
It's getting close to being over. We're close. We're almost to the finish line.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.